Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world, welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be covering another very exciting topic. We get entrepreneurs that approach us every single day with just hot, amazing new app ideas. And everybody wants to know what they can do to avoid pitfalls, avoid potential reasons why their app may not make it. And so if that's you, you're in the right place. I have a very special guest with me on the show today. And this is somebody that I've worked with on several hundred apps. And so I can speak from experience that this person knows exactly what they're doing. They're one of my main go-to people whenever I'm helping an entrepreneur launch a new app. And many of our current clients actually work with them as well. And I think you're going to all see why here in a moment. So let me bring Eshan onto the show here. Welcome, Eshan.
Thank you. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to have you here, and I appreciate you making time for us. What time is it in your time zone there in India?
It's around 11:30 p.m. right now.
11:30 p.m. on a Friday night, and Eshan is still working away. I don't know when you ever sleep, Eshan, but I appreciate, again, you carving some time out for us. And so, as you know, Eshan, having helped so many people with their apps and then seeing what happens after the fact, the sad truth is a lot of them don't make it.
No, they don't.
And with all of the apps you've seen, I'm sure that you've kind of picked up on some different things that can help determine whether something is going to make it, whether that project is actually going to see the light of day. And so before we get into the real good stuff, maybe you could just share some background information on yourself, just so everybody knows a little bit about you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Mike. First of all, thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to talk about technology and stuff with you, right? So back to your question about my background, I'll start with this, right? I have done my master's in microelectronics. My area of practice and thesis were in mobile devices. And this was on a chip level integration, right? For example, how a camera will be integrated on a chip that can interact with the softwares or the mobile apps, what we call today, use it, right? And while working on this, I saw the trend for mobile apps, right? And this was around 11, 12 years back, right?
Okay.
So it was very intriguing for me, so much so that I decided to quit and explore it more, right? So I left my job, joined a dev shop, worked there for 6 years, right? Gained enough experience that I can start my own dev shop, right? Which now I can proudly say that I'm the founder and CEO of Zoptal. It's a large dev shop here in Northern India, and I have 11 years of experience working with 1,000 plus apps, and out of which 300 plus are with you, Mike. You know that, right? And one thing I want to add here specifically is that Zoptal is strategically positioned to cater to US-based clients, right? And our 90% clientele is from US, right? So that's about my background, Mike. Over to you.
And that's huge, because I know a lot of people here in the States and even Canada, you know, they recognize that some of the best, if not the best, app development teams exist in India. Obviously, India has that reputation around the world of having a lot of highly skilled, highly talented people. But I think for most Americans and Canadians, it can be difficult to find the right company to work with. And I love the fact that you positioned your company specifically to cater to us US entrepreneurs and Canadians as well. And that's really, I think, what made it so easy for me to work with you over the years, is you just kind of got it. You understood the needs of us crazy Americans over here, and you positioned your company to really thrive with that in mind. And so very smart decision on your end to create your dev shop that way.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And so when it comes to apps, Whether you're trying to use pre-orders to raise money to develop the app, or whether you're trying to raise money after you've built your app and you're trying to grow and expand your market share, you always need to raise more money in entrepreneurship, and apps are no different.
Definitely.
And so in the apps that you've been a part of, Eshan, how much have you actually seen these apps raise, the ones you've been a part of?
Okay, I'll say this. In my 11 years of experience, right, I have been able to be a part of startups in total that have been able to raise approximately around $75 million in total, right? And this is spread across 20 to 25 startups in total, right? With the largest one having approximately $20 million in Series B funding. And the minimum that was the one startup that was able to achieve was 100K in total, right? So that's the basic number between everything, right? But again, you can compare it like with our topic, right? So 20 to 25 startups were able to achieve their target or raise funds, and the remaining were like, we'll discuss it down the line that what was the reason, right? But again, you get the idea.
I do. And, obviously those 20 or 25 that raised the majority of the money, again, you have a very interesting perspective because you were able to see behind the scenes what those founders were like. You were able to see, the code and, how original it was, or whether it was really a matter of marketing and positioning. And all those things are what I love and what you and I get to deep dive and talk about all the time when we're going over ProductMentor clients. And so, again, for everybody watching and tuning in right now, Eshan is the real deal. I mean, it's one thing to have an app and to code it. Those type of companies are a dime a dozen, but to actually create apps that are getting funded and to see how that process and that minutia works is absolutely invaluable, because as I mentioned, you're always going to need to raise more money to continually grow. And so this is a factor that you always want to align yourself with the right people that can help you do that so you can grow your company.
Definitely. That's the very right. That's the very truthful thing that you ever said, that anyone could say, right? And there are a few things like I'd like to add to it, right? Like the main common factors that I've seen with people who were able to raise money and few people who were not able to raise money, right? And these were a few things, right? So the most common factor that I've seen in successful founders is that they don't quit, no matter what, right? You can easily relate to this, Mike, that no one will ever give you money unless they are 100% certain that they will be able to make minimum of 2-3 times of what they have invested. I'm using 2-3 times, but most of the time they expect 10 times. But again, you can say that 2-3 times is the nominal amount that they expect, right? And I can also say this, that investors and VCs will grill you to the point where most people will break, right? And if you come out strong with a great idea, of course, right, you have a better chance of raising funds than others, right? People who break, right? That's one thing, right? That no quitting attitude is the most important thing in this one, right? And the second one is I'll say this is the most important one, right? The timing is very crucial, right? If you're at the right place at the right time, investors will come running to you, right? I'll take one example, right? I'm sure most of the people who are viewing it must have heard of this app called Signal app, right? It's a messenger app similar to WhatsApp. And as soon as WhatsApp released their new policies about whatever privacy policies they released, right? Elon Musk tweeted about this, right? Use Signal. That was just 2-3 lines, just a one-liner, 3 to 4 words, right? And this app was able to cross 10 million installs in no time. Now they have investors rushing towards to invest it. So much so that there was a similar company listed an IPO in stock exchange, similar to it. It's called Signal, right? I don't remember the exact name, but the name is similar to Signal, right? And their price skyrocketed 4,000%. And they actually have to tweet that we are not the company you are going to invest in. This is a different company. So that's what happened.
The same thing happened with Zoom. When Zoom became really popular last year, people were buying the wrong stock thinking
Right.
it was the Zoom. But yeah, timing is a huge factor. Sometimes timing can be intentional. Sometimes timing can be a little bit of luck.
Right.
Another great example is Parler. When
Mhm.
our former president Trump got kicked off Twitter, everybody started to go on Parler, and they were in the right place at the right time. They recognized that censorship was coming, and they built a censor-free social media app. And so you want to position your app where something is going to be changing, or you see trends that are changing, and you want to get in front of that wave. I think the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make, app entrepreneurs in this case,
Mhm.
is they make an app for today
Mhm.
instead of an app for where things are going.
Right.
And so you definitely want to follow trends.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways to do that. I'm on Trend Hunter every week,
Mhm.
studying the newest trends. I'm sure you have your methods as well.
Yes, definitely. I do.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes here, Eshan, because I think the reason most people want to hear what you know today is because they want to be able to avoid the reasons why most apps fail. And if you can take these things to heart and in light when you're on your journey, your
Mhm.
chances are going to go way up of getting where you want to go. And so, in your experience, Eshan, what is the number one reason that you see apps fail?
Okay. So, I'll say this before I begin. There are a number of reasons, we'll be discussing few today because it's a big thing to discuss in just one discussion room, right? But again, I'll start with this. The number one reason is uh, whenever you're starting developing an app, right, or whenever you think about an app, right, you think about adding too many features to it, right? So most of the clients that I meet, right, they think that adding as many as features they can in an app will increase their retention rate on the app, right? This may be true later down the line in version 3, version 4, or version 5, right? But at the beginning, at your very first launch, right, this is something that becomes the number one reason for failing, right? I'll explain a little bit to you, right? Like apps with too many features, right? Like what happens is you spend a tremendous amount of time to get it developed, right? And sometimes you may run out of crucial timing to position your startup, right? Your competition will be way ahead of you if you're following your competition and they're following you, right? So they'll be way ahead of you, right? And they'll get to your valued customers even before you can, right? And there's a chance that you may run out of money and you may never take off the development environment, right? You'll just be running between test builds and nothing else will be happening for you, right?
Or you
So,
may never launch, right? Like if you
yeah,
just keep adding more and more features,
right,
you may never actually get it out there
right,
because you're trying to make it everything for the very first version, like you're saying.
right, exactly.
And so one of my favorite examples here, Sean, is Airbnb, which
Right,
everybody knows of now. And when they launched, you could rent a couch in the city of San Francisco only.
right,
Right? It wasn't even a full bedroom, let alone a full house. It was a
right,
couch in one city. And that was all you could do on Airbnb when they first launched on the App Store. And
right,
so think about that and think about what the core features are in your app.
right,
Because to Sean's point, when he sees entrepreneurs come at him and they have this list of features that's a mile long, again, the cost goes up, the development time goes up, and you may not even need all those features,
right,
right? All
right.
those things may not even be necessary to get adoption.
That's very true, Mike. And the the best way, just like you mentioned for Airbnb, right? For example, right? Just get started with your minimum viable goal that you have, or in terms we call it minimum viable features that you need to get off the ground, and that's more than enough. Then your version 2 and version 3 can have enough content that you need. The luxury items, I'll call it, right? That you may not need in the beginning, but later down the line you might add it. Right.
Exactly. Like if you want artificial intelligence or something crazy that doesn't belong in version 1 in most cases. So So don't have too many features. Number one reason that apps fail. What about the
Yeah.
second reason, Eshan? The second most common reason you see apps fail?
Okay. So I'll divide this into two, right? So the first one is that either the people or the clients, right, they don't do proper research or they don't have enough research material done by them, right? And this is divided into two factors. One is choosing the team and one is choosing the features, right? So I'll start with this, right? Majority of the clients that I start with, right, they don't have a proper system of vetting the team that they're going to develop their team project with, right? And they have a tendency to go with the cheapest team that they find, right? And
Right.
start yeah, and start developing their ideas with them, right? And these cheap teams, I'm sorry, I'm using this term, I should not use it, but there's less expensive teams, right? They would deliver a half finished product to you, right? And which may or may not fail in its first attempt. But after you start marketing it and you get marketing rush, right? It's just going to fail. Either it is going to crash or something like that is going to happen. And just I'll recommend one thing to the folks out there, right? That find a technology partner, right, who can be creative enough to put life into your dream project and not do the opposite, right? Like this was about choosing the right team. And also one thing you can do, you always can do a quick LinkedIn search. You get to know the guy you're going to work with. There are recommendations there are a lot of stuff there. You can do that thing, right? This is point number one, Mike, right? And the other important factor here is to do research on the technology itself, right? This comes in two ways, right? One, that you do on your own, and the second, that you do with the rightful technology partner that you have chosen, right? So this research should be based on your competition. Do a quick review search on your competition, right? Just go to Play Store, go to this section called reviews, look what people are asking for. You'll get to know a lot of ideas that should be added into your technology, right? Second thing is that look at the technology which is available today and things that will be available in next 9 to 12 months, because that's the duration it takes to get a stable product out there, right? So look for it. Your technology partner will be able to help you in this case, right? And at the time of launch, like you can plan your version 2, and that can have the latest technology that is available at the time of your launch, right? So these are things to take care of.
So we get people every day, Sean, that want to make the cheapest app they can, to your point. And that is such an easy mistake to make. And I understand, because as entrepreneurs, we're taught to bootstrap, right? We're taught to get more done with less. And so, the intention is good, but the issue is, and I've dealt with this myself working with other app development companies than yours, is we'll get the finished app, and the amount of bug testing and the amount of quality control testing every feature and every link can be a nightmare. It can end up taking longer to bug test the app and going back and forth, fixing everything than the actual build took to even create. And so I've tried those less expensive shops out there because, as an entrepreneur, I wanted to try all the different calibers. And what I found is the cheapest ones ended up being a nightmare and a headache. They ended up taking more time and money in the long run because they never actually got finished. The bug testing back and forth, again, it just turned into a nightmare scenario. So to have a team that can, you're always going to have bugs, don't get me wrong, but to have a team that can actually test their software before sending it to you is really what you're getting, in my mind. When you spend a little bit more, you get what you pay for, as they say. So
exactly.
So the number two reason why most apps fail is they go for the cheapest option available. So don't make that mistake. Now moving on, Eshan, because you have a lot more to share with everybody. What is the third most common reason you see for apps failing?
Okay, Mike. The number 3 reason, as per me, would be that choosing the wrong time for marketing your dream idea, right? Like most starter founders would assume that the right time to market your product is after or at the time of launch of your product, right? If you ask me this, right, Mike, so this is a step toward wasting crucial time, right? My suggestion here would be that the right time to market or start talking about your idea would be at the time you begin with your development, right? This gives you extra 6 to 12 months, the time that is utilized to develop the app, right? That you can create awareness about your product, you can create anticipation and curiosity among your followers, right? For example, let's take one example, right? Imagine that you launch your product, right? And there are no users to take it and no credible information about your product on the internet, right? And hence, there will be 0 to 10 installs in your first week, right? Now, imagine the motivation level of the founder who has just spent extensive hours testing the app, uh, extensive labor spent there, and plus the thousands of dollars that he has spent. A normal person won't be able to take this hit, right? So the way around it would be that without giving away your crucial information, the secret recipe of your app, right? You can still create enough buzz, curiosity among your followers, right? Like simple practice that we follow is right that since day one you can start writing 2 to 3 articles. You can have someone copywriter to write these articles for you based on your creativity level. You can think about something and go to these famous sites, right? They hardly charge 10, like minimum would be $10 and maximum would be up to $100, right? So they can post your article there, right? Or another thing that you can do if you're with the right technology partner and the right dev shop, right? They'll help you create animated videos representing your app progress, right? Imagine that people following you from day one and they see your product grow from day one, right? They can see the progress that you're making. You're not giving the crucial information, but still telling that something is coming down the line, right? And one last thing to add to it, right, would be that towards the end, right, like suppose if you're near launching your product, 1 month before and right at the time of launch, if you can get an influencer to talk about your launch, right, that makes a big difference, right? And I'm sure by following these tips, you'll create enough curiosity that there will be enough people waiting for downloading your app on the first day itself, right? That's the thing.
So I covered this either last week or the week before, but 80% of your success in business is your marketing. And what Eshan is saying, everybody, is the number 3 reason most apps fail is they're so focused on the features and the software and the app itself that they lose sight of actually promoting it and marketing it and getting it exposure. So when it does launch, people are expecting it and anticipating it, and you've built that curiosity. And so don't forget about your marketing. I know, Eshan, that your firm can help with that as well. And we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole right now, but I know that you know how to market apps by a couple of the illustrations or examples you just shared. But the high level takeaway here, everybody, is just realize that it comes down to marketing, and marketing is how you've positioned yourself in the marketplace, right? And to Eshan's point, if you read reviews about other apps and you see the big mishaps, you see where they're missing the mark, that can actually turn into your marketing plan. And those can be the benefits and the features that you focus on in your own marketing to capture market share. I love marketing. It's one of those things, just as much art is science. But don't forget about your marketing, because you could have the coolest app in the world, but if you haven't given it the proper exposure, nobody's going to download it because they're not going to know it exists. So great takeaway on that one, Eshan. Let's jump to the 4th reason, the number 4 reason you see most apps fail.
Okay. So this is my opinion, right? But I'll share it with you, right? This is like not vetting your idea properly before starting the development, right? Like I've seen many startup owners not thinking it through. Please don't mind anyone, but still, I've seen this. That's why I'm discussing it, right? So, like they have this amazing idea. They know it will be huge, but somewhere in the process, they miss to add the juice necessary for this project or their dream project to succeed, right? And 5 months into the development, after testing a proper functional like test app that we usually send, these are test flights, right? So on their mobile, they realized, oops, we missed that, right? And now they try to pivot it, right? and they'll try to add important features, but it does not gel with the entire app they have created so far. Now, usually what happens in this case is either that you'll miss important window for your launch because you know that without proper direction and plan, adding something to the app is a mess, right? And will lead to unpredicted crashes at the time of your launch, right? So my suggestion here would be that the way around this would be that properly vet your idea before you begin, think it through, create a clickable prototype, and things that you was that like many people that do after 5 months, you can do it at the very beginning of it, right? And when you're finally satisfied, then start with the development, right? I've seen many clients miss this important step and rules race against time and eventually either run out of money or motivation, right? So back to you, Mike, on this.
See, I love that, Eshan, because one of my biggest mantras in entrepreneurship is customer is king,
Right.
right? And I'm sure you see people approach you all the time and they're like, Eshan, I have this great app idea. I want you to make it. And it's an app that that person, that founder wants. And it's not necessarily the same app with the same features that the user wants, that the customer wants. And so that is one of the biggest mistakes in general that we see. And building an app is no different. If you build an app for yourself, the chances of it succeeding are much less than if you build it for the customer. Very simple concept, but it's profound if you approach your entire development and strategy from the customer's perspective. And yeah, clickable prototypes are great, to your point. As you know, we're big fans of running surveys and vetting everything that way too. But to your point, Eshan, right, don't just build an app for yourself, because if you do it without the customer in mind, you could very well fail for that reason as well.
Right.
So, let's jump to the fifth and final reason, Eshan, why you see most apps fail.
Okay, so this is one thing related to technology, right? Or basically graphical design, right? Like we are all focused on getting a high fidelity design added to our dream project, right? It should have this graphic, it should have this animation, whatnot. We want everything there, right? But we miss one important thing, and that's user experience, UX, what we call. And that's why UI and slash UX are always named together, right? It should have a good design, but along with it, it should always have a good UX or a user experience, right? Right. Now, imagine this: you download an app that makes you go through 15 different steps before you can finally use the app, right? Versus an app that is designed as per human interface, right? And is just 2 to 3 clicks away from using the app while taking all the necessary information from the user that is necessary for him to come back and use the same where he left off, right? So you already know this, right? In the first option, you'll have a high tendency to leave the steps and start moving yourself away from it unless you really want it, right? But in the second one, even if you don't want the app really bad, right? But still you'll give it a try, right? It's just 2, 3 clicks. What's the harm in that, right? So in all these are a few of the important measures that must be taken while getting your app into the business, right? With right direction, at ProductMentor, a mentee will get, I'm sure they will succeed, right? And in case you get stuck with me, I'll do my best to make you follow these steps. Back to you.
Well, I've been stuck with you for almost 3 years, Eshan, and I haven't regretted it at all. As you know, I've used so many different app developers out there. And, I say from experience, you're one of the easiest to work with. The work quality in your team is amazing. And yes, to your point, the fifth reason why most apps fail, they're difficult to use is the bottom line, right? It has to make sense. It has to be intuitive from the user's perspective, so that it naturally helps them do the next step. If you have to make them work to get the value out of your app, then you're going to lose people. And again, this is just as much art as science. It's not like you can just take a wireframe template and just say, okay, I'm going to plug my app into it. It takes a lot of forethought, and it takes using a clickable prototype so you can see where people are getting stuck. and you can
Right.
see where things need to be moved around a little bit. So again, the fifth reason, everybody, make sure your app is super easy to use and intuitive, because if not, people check out before they even start using it to begin with. And so we're already 30 minutes in here, Eshan. We have covered a ton of information. And again, the amount of trial and error that you had to go through and that you've seen to distill those 5 reasons. Again, it took 11 years, everybody, for Eshan to come up with those and to determine that those are the biggest factors. So I thank you for sharing those with the audience, Eshan. Any final advice before we go today?
Yeah, for to all the startup owners, founders, inventors, I'll suggest you one thing, right? Whenever you think of something, get yourself a notepad, start writing it. If you don't want to waste paper, just get yourself a drive link and write down things there, right? And keep it as a living document with you forever, or till the time you start your development with any of the technology founders you love working with, right? So that's it.
Absolutely. Write things down, right? As long as it's not 10 more features, right? To the number one reason. But in all seriousness, yeah, you gotta write things down. Being as detail oriented and analytical as you are, Eshan, I'm sure writing things down is an absolute requirement. Where some people might be a little more high level. But yeah, writing things down, for me at least, makes them real and allows you to grow the concept from that initial kernel of an idea or an inspiration or a thought that you came up with. So awesome advice. Again, everybody in the Product Mentor ecosystem that's working with you, Eshan, absolutely loves you. And if they aren't working with you yet, I'm sure they want to. So thank you again for being here today. Really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy your Friday evening. Don't get into too much trouble over there.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak to everyone who's looking at Product Mentor. Trust me, guys, you're at the right place. Just follow through what Mike says and you'll make it.
Appreciate that, Eshan. So at the end of the day, everybody, success is a choice. You can take this information you learned today and you can let it go in one ear and out the other, or you can take the bull by the horn and you can make sure that you're not making any of these mistakes. And this applies whether you just have an idea for an app and you're just starting, or maybe you're at the very other end of the spectrum and you're already in the App Store and you might need to reevaluate one of these things. But either way, what do you think? Leave some comments down below. Can you relate to any of these reasons? Are any of these reasons currently holding you back from getting started or from your app being as successful as it possibly could? I hope you all learned a lot today. Until next time, the American dream is closer than you realize. To your success, I'm out.